One of the advantages of my job is that it takes me to places most people never get the chance to see. I'm a regional consultant for a manufacturing company, which means I spend a lot of time traveling across the country. A few years ago, I was sent to a small mountain town in Western Virginia for a week-long project. The timing couldn't have been better. It was the middle of October, and the mountains were covered in bright shades of red, orange, and gold. Every road looked like it belonged on a postcard. Normally, my company pays for a hotel room, but after months of non-stop work, I wanted some peace and quiet. Instead of booking a hotel, I rented a cabin through a vacation rental website. The listing looked perfect. The cabin sat alone on several acres of land surrounded by dense forest. There was a wraparound porch, a stone fireplace, and large windows overlooking a valley below. The owner, a woman named Rebecca, had dozens of positive reviews. Everyone described the place as peaceful, private, and relaxing. Exactly what I needed. I arrived late Friday afternoon. The drive to the cabin was beautiful but isolated. As I got closer, cell service became weaker until eventually I had almost none. By the time I pulled into the gravel driveway, the sun was beginning to disappear behind the mountains. The cabin looked exactly like the pictures, maybe even better. I unpacked my bags, ordered some food from a restaurant in town, and spent the evening sitting on the porch listening to the sounds of the forest. For the first few hours, everything felt perfect. Then, sometime around 10 p.m., I heard footsteps. At least that's what they sounded like. Slow footsteps directly above me. I looked up at the ceiling. The cabin had a second floor. The problem was that I was the only guest. The noise lasted for maybe 10 seconds before stopping. I laughed it off. Old cabins make noises. Wood expands and contracts. Animals run across roofs. There had to be a logical explanation. I went to bed shortly after midnight. At around 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly. The footsteps were back. This time, they sounded heavier, slow, deliberate, back and forth, almost like someone pacing. I sat upright in bed and listened. The sounds continued for nearly a minute. Then silence. Complete silence. Eventually, I convinced myself it was nothing and managed to fall asleep again. The next morning, I woke up feeling embarrassed. I was a grown-up man getting scared by random noises. After breakfast, I decided to go hiking. Several trails started near the property, and I spent most of the morning exploring the woods. The forest was beautiful, but around noon, I noticed something strange. Fresh footprints, not animal tracks, human footprints. They weren't on the main trail. They were leading through the woods towards the back of the property. I stopped and examined them. The ground was soft from rain earlier in the week. Whoever met them had passed through recently. I followed them for a few minutes before they disappeared into thicker brush. The whole thing left me with an uneasy feeling. When I returned to the cabin later, I noticed something even stranger. The back door was unlocked. I was absolutely certain I had locked it before leaving. I checked every room. Nothing seemed disturbed. No missing items, no broken windows, no signs of forced entry. I convinced myself I had simply forgotten. Still, the feeling in my stomach remained. That evening, I drove into town for work. After finishing a meeting, some coworkers invited me out for drinks. Normally, I would have gone straight back to the cabin. That night, I stayed out longer than usual. For reasons I couldn't explain, I wasn't excited to return. I finally left town around 10:30 p.m. The drive back felt different. The roads were dark, the forest seemed endless, and the closer I got to the cabin, the more nervous I became. When I turned into the driveway, I immediately noticed something wrong. A light was on upstairs. I knew I had turned it off before leaving. I sat in my car, staring at the cabin. For several minutes, I debated what to do. Part of me wanted to call the owner. Part of me wanted to drive away and get a hotel room. Instead, I grabbed my flashlight and walked inside. The downstairs appeared normal. Nothing looked disturbed. I slowly climbed the stairs. Every step creaked beneath my feet. When I reached the top, I noticed the upstairs hallway light was now off. The room that had appeared illuminated from outside was completely dark. That's when I saw the closet door. It was open. I distinctly remembered closing it earlier. The darkness inside looked deeper than it should have. I stepped closer. Something smelled strange, like stale food and body odor. A chill ran down my spine. I aimed my flashlight into the closet. At first, I didn't see anything. Then I noticed blankets piled in the corner, empty water bottles, food wrappers, beer cans. My heart nearly stopped. Someone had been living in the closet. I backed away immediately. As I did, I heard a noise. Not from outside, not from upstairs, from somewhere inside the wall. A scratching sound, followed by movement. I practically ran downstairs, locked myself in the living room, and called 911. The dispatcher initially sounded confused. I probably sounded insane. I kept repeating that someone was inside the cabin. Someone had been living there. She told me deputies were on the way. Then came the worst part. While I was on the phone, I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow footsteps, exactly like the ones I had heard the night before. Only this time I knew they were real. I grabbed a fireplace poker and waited. The footsteps crossed the second floor. Then came the sound of a door opening. Another door. Then silence. A minute later, I heard something moving downstairs. My blood ran cold. Whoever was in the house was now on the same floor as me. I couldn't see them, but I could hear them. The dispatcher kept telling me help was coming. The footsteps moved closer, then stopped. Directly outside the living room doorway. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then I heard breathing, heavy breathing. Someone was standing there, listening, waiting. I backed towards the fireplace and held the poker with both hands. The doorway remained dark. The person never stepped into view. They just stood there. Then suddenly they ran. I heard the front door open, then slam shut. The deputies arrived less than 2 minutes later. I rushed outside and flagged them down. Several officers searched the cabin and surrounding woods. They found signs that someone had been secretly living inside the property, not for days, for weeks, maybe longer. There was a narrow maintenance crawl space hidden behind a panel inside the upstairs closet. The space connected to parts of the walls and attic. Whoever had been staying there could move throughout sections of the house without being seen. The officers found food, clothing, batteries, and makeshift bedding, but they didn't find the person, at least not that night. The next morning, they finally got him. A hunter reported seeing a man hiding in the woods near the property. He was arrested less than a mile from the cabin. According to police, he was a drifter with a long criminal record. For reasons nobody could fully explain, he had chosen that cabin as his hiding place. What disturbed me most wasn't the fact that he was there. It was how long he had been there. The police believed he had been living inside the walls and hidden spaces of the cabin for nearly a month, sleeping there, watching guests, waiting for opportunities to steal food and supplies. The thought still makes my skin crawl. To this day, I can't stay in rental cabins. I can't stay in isolated vacation homes. And every time I hear an unexplained noise in the middle of the night, I think about those footsteps above my head. Because sometimes the thing making the noise isn't a ghost. Sometimes it's something far worse. A real person.